Welcome to the Ultimate Gaming Realm, and this is your curator, Dixon, logging on. Friday the 13th NES game. Released in February of 1989, music composed by Hirohiko Takayama. The game, of course, was published by LGN, but the game was developed by Atlus. Atlus is well known for their works behind popular RPG series like Persona and other games like Trauma Center. And Atlus also developed another LGN game I did a few summers ago, TNC Surf Designs, which in my book, TNC Surf Designs is one of the most underrated games out there. And it's definitely one of the best games that LGN did. Well, with the help from Atlus, of course. But now let's see how good or bad Atlus did for LGN on the Friday the 13th game. Friday the 13th NES game is a single player, and you control one of the 6 counselors of your choice to protect the kids and help fellow counselors that are in trouble. And of course the main objective in the game, you guessed it, is to destroy Jason. If you can. When you start the game, you have this unique intro with Jason's hockey mask with a knife being thrown into the eye, and then comes this flashy title menu. The intro is based off the cover of the 4th Friday the 13th film, The Final Chapter. After the title menu, you have the choice of one of the 6 counselors. Some are slow and most likely useless, and some are fast and usable. And usually, depending on which counselor you use, it's always recommended to use 1 or 2 of the faster ones to keep stationed in cabins by the lake where the children are stationed, so you can be there on time to protect them from Jason. Which I kind of think is a little unusual, because I don't think Jason targets children. Maybe he uses them as bait to lure counselors into Jason's trap, but I don't remember seeing him kill any innocent kid in any of the 8 movies. I also find it bizarre to have this type of thing in a Nintendo game. I mean, you don't see him killing any kids, but the thought of that's still kind of odd. Especially on a video game console that's mainly targeted towards the family-friendly type, mainly kids for the most part. But then again, I might just be speculating. Now that I started the game as one of the counselors I selected, and I know what some of you fans that watched the 8 Friday the 13th films are thinking. You'll only have to deal with Jason in this game, right? But unfortunately, not. Well, Jason is the main target in the game, but besides on the path of protecting others and dealing with Jason, you will constantly run into other hostile creatures that are not recognizable in the Friday the 13th movies, like these endless zombies coming out of the ground or out of the water, crows coming from the sky and attacking you, and if you're in the woods or caves, wolves come after you. Well, I see where they're getting at, because Nintendo wants to make sure that you're dealing with more than just one villain in the game. And like I said, Nintendo is mainly targeted towards kids. They want to get more stuff for the game for kids to have fun, which I guess it makes sense. But the thing is, you don't accomplish anything when killing these creatures. Not as far as I can tell, and this game doesn't even have a score counter. Oh, and the game starts out as a side-scroller. Then when you enter a cabin, the game turns into a 3D first-person kinda like perspective. Oh, and when you start the game, by the way, you're given a task is to light all fireplaces in the cabins. Well, mainly the bigger cabins. Now, what does lighting up fireplaces in certain cabins have anything to do with destroying Jason? When you start out with each counselor, you're equipped with a rock, which is the weakest weapon in the game, and a very pointless one, too. All it does, when you're using the rock, it goes over enemies' heads most of the time. So the best way to use the rock is when crouching. pathetic. And at times, random items will come out of nowhere to light the fireplaces and bigger cabins, plus keys to unlock doors either in the woods or the cave, medicine bottles which fills your health, which are limited to carry 9, and of course the next weapon upgrade, which is usually the dagger, which is 100 times better and powerful than that stupid rock. There's other weapons that you'll find later in the game, if you have the patience to get far enough, like the machete, torch, and throwing pitchforks. Who throws a pitchfork? Let alone multiple pitchforks at a time. Well, surprisingly enough, that's the most powerful weapon in the game. And as far as I can tell, most of these items randomly pop up when they feel like it. I don't know what the fucking deal is, but at times, I mainly kill multiple endless zombies that come my way, and nothing comes up. And sometimes, if I don't do anything but move along, items out of nowhere randomly appear. So I don't think there's a clear pattern for what or when the items appear. Counselors can be swappable, which can be helpful depending on where the counselor is located. All you have to do is go into one of the smaller cabins and go to your map by hitting start button and change character from there. And every time when you save someone, they will always thank you, even though I haven't fought Jason yet, and chances are, depending on my current health status and which counselor I'm using, I'm not sure if I'm going to make it out alive or not. And when you fight Jason, sometimes he fights you empty-handed, and it looks like Punch-Out. I mean, with the way the punches are and the way I dodge at times, it kind of feels like Punch-Out. And Jason can still take more damage. But if you manage to get through Jason after any round, he disappears and says, "You win for now." Yeah, you win for now. Jason can also randomly appear during the side-scrolling mode, and sometimes he dashes through the lake when you're on a canoe. And I think battling Jason in the side-scrolling mode is a little bit more easier than battling them inside of a cabin in 3D mode. Even though there's no life bar during the Jason fight on the side-scrolling part, but it still does damage. But the issue when dashing through the lake when you're on a canoe, he just dashes through and takes a little bit of your health away, and you can't dodge him. Now that fucking sucks. And another thing about Jason Voorhees in the NES game, what do you think of how he looks in the purple jumpsuit and a blue hockey mask? I honestly think he looks pretty cool. I think the way Jason looks in the game is quite original. Nowadays the NES skin of Jason Voorhees is pretty much a cult classic. Since we're on a similar subject, that's another thing I want to go over. The graphics and character designs. Well, the character designs we'll start with. Well, they're okay. But as you notice, some colors on some counselors don't match. For instance, George is wearing pink, and 3 female counselors are wearing blue or green. Well, I don't think it makes too much of a difference because all 6 counselors graphic-wise looks pretty much the same to me anyway. And sometimes if you look at the children, the graphics makes them more creepier with no faces, especially if it's in the dark. Above all, when it comes to graphics altogether, they're not great, but they're not bad either. But the music in the NES Friday the 13th game is great. The opening theme, the Jason theme are quite amazing. But the side-scrolling music Well, it's good, but it loops constantly, and when you're in the side-scrolling mode, it doesn't change, unless if Jason pops up. Altogether, I think the music score for the NES Friday the 13th game is a plus. Now the map system. It looks self-explanatory, but it can be misleading and it can throw you off guard. Like according to what the map says, you're going in one direction, but it turns out you're going the opposite direction. Now they either rushed the game, or they're just too fucking lazy to come up with proper map settings. In fact, they were pretty much lazy with pretty much most of the things in the game. And when you enter either a cave or the woods, they have no directions. So how the fuck do we know where we're supposed to go? Now that's a big red flag there. They didn't use proper logic. Now sometimes when you hear an alarm, it's either one of the counselors or the children in danger. For a counselor, you have an option to go into that cabin where the counselor is to save the counselor, or you can go into the nearest small cabin and swap the counselor that's in danger so he or she can defend him or herself. If the children are in danger, well, they have a number of 15 children, by the way, in the big cabin near the lake. You have to use a canoe to go there. Depending on how slow you are, possible he might have got a few of them already by the time you got there. Or if you miss one round, usually 5 at a time get killed. So in order to protect all children in the proper way, you must get the counselor that's close enough to the lake, and recommendably a fast enough counselor, so he or she can be there on time. Also in big cabins, you will sometimes find a note saying either check in one of the cabins near the lake or near the cave, or sometimes in the cave or in the woods. It doesn't always tell you why, and sometimes it could just be a wild goose chase and a waste of time. Sometimes it will tell you if there's a weapon in the woods or something, but half of the time it's not always there. It's definitely possible that I could have done it in the wrong pattern, but why is it that there's a note telling you that you have to go in that direction anyway? Now this is a big fucking headache here, because it happens at random events. And by the way, I think you have to have the same counselor that found the note in order to continue on your journey finding that weapon. I'm already lost for words here. Oh, and guess what you get if you light all fireplaces with the lighter? You get a flashlight. So that's why you have to light all the fireplaces. Just to get a goddamn flashlight. What the fuck? Shouldn't all counselors be equipped with flashlights from the beginning just in case of emergency like during nighttime? I knew lighting up fireplaces had nothing to do with destroying Jason. With the minor exception that flashlights are needed to see inside the cave. And there is a room inside that cave where you'll find a decapitated head of Jason's mother. And it looks like the similar layout from Friday the 13th Part 2, except Mrs. Voorhees' head is possessed, and she will attack you. And you have to defeat her, to get either a flashing color sweater, which makes your counselor more stronger, and sometimes with other counselors, you'll get the pitchfork, which is actually the strongest weapon in the game, believe it or not. And from the looks of it, one counselor can only defeat Mrs. Voorhees once. And one other thing that will add more insult to lighting up fireplaces And what's worse about lighting all fireplaces, you have to do it with each counselor, which is a crock of fucking bullshit. And it's a fucking hassle. You have to light all fireplaces with all 6 counselors just to get a stupid fucking flashlight. And like I said a few minutes ago, all counselors should have been equipped with flashlights from the beginning. I mean, were they supposed to be a team here? Well, according to this game, not always. After all, it was the Nintendo era, and LGN was responsible for this game. I guess it's their job to make this type of game an Einstein project, especially to get a lousy flashlight. And even there they went a little too far. Ah, fuck it, let's move on. Now, from what experience I had with this game, is that there's 3 ways the game will end. 1. If all 6 counselors die. A harsh message will appear. You and your friends are dead. Game over. 2. If all children die. This message appears. Jason has wiped out all the kids. Game over. And 3. The most important ending to win the game. Destroy Jason Voorhees. If you can. In order to destroy Jason, is that you have to keep finding him, or he keeps finding you, either way. And you have to damage him as much as you can until he decides to walk off. And it's usually a little bit of energy you take from him on each round. And every time when you encounter Jason, it's pretty much rinse and repeat until you get to his last hit point. And it's also more recommendable that you find upgrades for each of your counselor as possible. The more upgrades like powerful weapons you get, the more easier and faster to destroy Jason. Come to think of it, the way you're trying to destroy Jason, when every time when he encounters and you inflict more damage on him, he vanishes. It's also a pretty similar pattern when it comes to destroying Jaws. Jaws also has a life bar, and if you drain a little bit of the shark's health, the part of the stage ends. And just like Jason, Jaws is pretty much a rinse and repeat thing. Well, after all, both Jaws and Friday the 13th NES games were done by LGN, so a similar pattern is indeed something to expect. And you have to drain the health of Jason 3 times completely in order to complete the game. After the first time, he gets more stronger, and after the second time, he gets more difficult. So upgrading your counselor is more necessary than ever. And I know it's gonna be a waste of fucking time, and the game can be a test of patience. And of course, there's always the alternative, using Game Genie or any cheats, which to be honest, I kinda did, because the game cheats itself. Then again, in a way, most NES games do cheat themselves. And once you defeat Jason for the 3rd time, you get this message. You have finally managed to defeat Jason. But is he really dead? We're not telling. And then it goes to the title menu. So this game does not have a proper ending. No celebration, no ending credits, nothing. So the only thing there is to do is to have a guess that's good as theirs. Is Jason really dead or not? Well, chances are, he probably isn't dead. And look how Jason is defeated. He feels like he got knocked on his ass in this defeat. It's like losing a round of Punch-Out and he's just sitting right there in the corner. That's pretty much all there is to the NES game of Friday the 13th. Overall, the Friday the 13th NES gameplay does have some potential. A few things in the game are good, and there's a few things in the game that are just stupid. The game is also hard for many wrong reasons, So the Friday the 13th NES game to me isn't a bad one as some critics say. It is far from one of the worst games in the world. And it's most certainly far from the worst LJN games, period. So it can be recommendable in certain aspects. I consider it as a cult classic if you look back on it. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please do subscribe to my Ultimate Gaming Realm YouTube channel. And please do click like or dislike on the video. And leave a comment below. And please do join the Ultimate Gaming Realm on social apps like Facebook or Twitter. Until next time, this is Dixon of the Ultimate Gaming Realm, logging off.